What do Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Monica and Damian Shepard, Rosenda Strong, Alyssa McLemore, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez and his young daughter Valeria, Carlos Hernandez Vasquez, an unidentified Asian family shopping at Sam's Club, and now, unfortunately, with a heavy heart, I add George Floyd to the list, because when I wrote this blog, he was still alive. What do all these people and many, many, many others who are and who have been victims of systemic oppression and racial violence have to do with ending diet culture and ending weight stigma? A lot. My name is Jessica Scalzo with Compassionate Peer Counseling. It is the view of Compassionate Peer Counseling that ending diet culture will not happen until we end systemic racism. Fighting for racial justice is intrinsically linked with fighting for body liberation. They cannot be separated. If just one body is not free, then systematically we have created a hierarchy where some bodies are deemed superior to others. The more we resemble the targeted body, the more inferior we are thought to be. And if we live in the culture, no matter what body we're in, we internalize this. This does not just affect the one without freedom. In essence, it traps us all because our treatment in society will be based on our association and resemblance of the inferior body. Even if we are in the most privileged of bodies, we're not free because we constantly are preoccupied with maintaining our privilege and are afraid to be our authentic selves. This can even be seen in our choice of bodies that we think we're attracted to. As relationship and intimacy coach Dawn Sarah mentioned on Christy Harrison's Food Psych podcast, she says this: often when we think we prefer a certain kind of body, what we are really preferring is the access and the privilege that comes with being around someone in a certain kind of body. When I heard that, I was filled with emotions because it just rang so true to me. In our culture, Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian, Pacific Islander, LGBTQ, disabled, older, poor, sick, larger, female, uneducated, child, and gender non-conforming bodies are not liberated. If a Black man cannot run down the street without fearing for his life, his body is not free. If a Black woman who's been saving people's lives during the COVID-19 pandemic, saving our lives, our family members' lives, if she has to fear for her life while sleeping, then her body is not free. If a Black high school senior playing video games rushes to a knock at the door thinking that somebody needs help, only to find a mob of armed white men, his body is not free. If an Indigenous woman's younger sister looks her in the eye and says, "I love you, I'll be back, okay?" and her remains are found over a year later in a freezer with no leads on who committed the murder, then their bodies are not free. If an Indigenous woman's last words are pleading for help on a 911 call before the call gets cut, and over 10 years later, there are still no answers to what happened, her body is not free. If a Salvadoran father and daughter's lives get swept away by the Rio Grande as the mother waits for her moment to cross because there's no safe way to enter the USA as an undocumented person, then their bodies are not free. If a 16-year-old Guatemalan boy has to make his way north for a better life and to help his brother with special needs, unaccompanied by his parents, only to die in Border Patrol custody, his body is not free. If an unidentified Asian family shopping at Sam's Club, including 2 children, one who's just 2 years old, one who's 6 years old, were stabbed by a man who later claimed he was trying to murder them because he thought they were Chinese and infecting people with the coronavirus, their bodies are not free. And now I will add that if a black man is pulled out of his car, dragged into the street by a mob, armed mob of police officers, and then suffocated slowly for the whole world to see, then his body is not free. How can we have body liberation when some bodies are still targeted? Body liberation and ending weight stigma cannot be separated from racial justice and ending racism. Can't separate the two because they are intersectional like the wires of a birdcage, and they do not act alone. As Marilyn Frye taught me in her essay, Oppression, if we just focus on an individual wire, then we have a hard time understanding why the bird doesn't just fly around and free itself. It's when we look at the wholeness of the birdcage that we see how each individual wire intersects with all the other individual wires to keep the bird trapped. Racism is intersecting with sexism, ageism, ableism, and more to help weight stigma and fat phobia keep us trapped in diet culture. In fact, it would not survive without them. It needs them. Diet culture and racism depend on each other and the other oppressions to maintain themselves. And they also depend on us not seeing the connection. I have to repeat this because this is very important for all oppressions in our society, in our culture, in our systems. They depend on the people, all of us, not seeing their connection. And therein lies our freedom, connection. More to come in the next video. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your attention.